Hi, and welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast, co-hosted by Abby Fearing, the Badass Breastfeeder, and Dianne Cassidy, IBCLC.
Hey, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant, IBCLC.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder.
And we are going to talk today on the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast about alcohol consumption. And
I know y'all just fell off your chair.
I know.
We're going to talk about alcohol.
Oh my God, not alcohol. So it's so funny because when I do classes, people are like, because I want people to ask about it, you know, and I always say, does anybody have concerns about lifestyle changes or anything like that that might come up when you're breastfeeding? And of course, there's always diet and, I can't eat everything under the sun and, caffeine and all this other crap that we'll have to talk about in another podcast.
You can.
Oh, yeah, you can. You can do whatever you want to do. But, within reason about, doing whatever you want to do. But the alcohol piece, people are like, well, I know you can't drink. And I'm like, yeah, you can. And people are like, well, what? No, what? And it's like, you don't have to give up everything.
I know, but I think that is the big thing that comes with breastfeeding, right? Is like this is how breastfeeding has become so marginalized and so taboo, is that over 100 years, it was made out to be so hard, and there's a lot of ways that on purpose, like is like actually an agenda, to make breastfeeding seem hard and not good and not not the choice you want to make. Wouldn't it be just easier to buy this formula? And that's fine. You could totally buy formula. But the thing is that a lot of the stuff that has come up about breastfeeding just isn't true.
Right.
That's where all this stuff comes in. It's like, well, you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't, well, you'll never be able to go in public again and your boobs will sag to your knees and and it's like, this stuff is just not true. And so, I feel like since we're doing a whole podcast about this, we could start off by saying alcohol is not, it's not like health food. It's not good for you. We're not saying that like you really need to get alcohol back in your diet. You're not, alcohol is, it's not like it's not something that you need in your diet. Right. But culturally, it is something that we do. And if it's something that you do and you would like to do, then you're okay to do it. And we will get into the details about why it's okay to do it. But also, if you don't want to do it, then don't. It's okay if you also don't want to do it.
I've had a lot of moms, I think it's a really good point to say, like, it's definitely a social thing. It's not like we're out here going, okay, everybody go get a glass of wine right now. It's
right. You need your broccoli, your spinach, and your glass of wine. Like
that's not what we're doing. But I think for one thing, you're pregnant a long time. And for some women who are trying to get pregnant, you're really holding off and not doing a lot of these things for a very long time. And sometimes people just want to know, is it okay? Maybe they don't really want to, or they were never a drinker to begin with. I had one mom that was like, I just want a beer so bad. I don't even like beer, but I see my husband drinking it and I want one. Like, it's just that mental piece of you can't do it.
It's psychological. We see, we have been kind of conditioned in our culture to think of it as like, relaxing and something that will, something we could do at the end of the day to just, treat ourselves or something like,
right.
We're working really hard as moms and, we think, oh, that would be just really nice to treat myself to that.
I have had, like, the biggest times I get questions about alcohol is around the holidays and at the summer. There's weddings you're going to, there's picnics you're going to, like, it's a social thing. And people are doing, like, here and I don't know where everybody else is in the world, but here in upstate New York where I am, it's a huge wine country here. People do wine tours for we'll just sometimes jump in the car on Saturday afternoon and be like, let's go wine tasting and just drive an hour and be at 15 different wineries. It's fun. And people do their bridal parties out there and, just all kinds of stuff. And if that's the kind of atmosphere you're in, you don't want to be like, oh, I'm breastfeeding, I can't do that. It's just, That's
right.
not what
That's
it's about.
not a reason not to. It's not
right. It's not a reason not to
drink. If you have other reasons that you don't want to drink, that's fine. But breastfeeding in and of itself is not a reason not to. Now, we got to get into things like sleeping with your baby.
Yeah.
You know, like being able to care for your baby. These are things that you have to think about. You don't have to think about putting your baby to your breast because it's actually, we'll get into the numbers. I can give you the exact numbers if you want. But after I had Exley, it was nice because I used midwives that time who, like, I had their phone number. So I could just, like, text them, you know, as they were leaving. They're like, just text us if you have a question. And so I had him on a Thursday morning, and I was just obviously in bed. And then Friday night, I planned my big night out on Friday was going to be to make it to the living room. And so, yeah, I was like, I'm going to go sit in the living room on Friday night. And so I went into the living room, and I was like, oh, I kind of want a beer. And so I texted my midwife. I was like, can I have a beer? And I knew, because this is my second baby. It's not like but I don't know. I just wanted to see what her reaction would be. And she was like, I can't think of anyone in the world who deserves a beer more than you.
Right.
And I was like, oh, she was like, and she said, common sense rules apply. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, she said, you know, it was a whole thing. It was like, okay, you just had a baby, so you're going to take a shower. Don't take a 15-minute super hot shower.
Yeah.
And self-fate. Like, don't have 6 beers. You know, you just had a baby, you know, have a beer. That's great. You can do it. You deserve it.
And I always tell moms, like, I don't think I've met a new mother that is like, all right, I want to go tie one on. What are my regulations? No. Like, it just doesn't.
No, but if you know, yeah, right. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
And we're not going to sit here and give you numbers either. Well, we can give you numbers. But, you know, I think one of the things that happens culturally here is that people associate drinking with being trashed, you know, being drunk, being fall down drunk. And, you know, that's a cultural thing. And that's something that, you know, for you yourself, again, you are going to have to figure out, like, what, if you are going to have, you know, enough alcohol that you're going to feel tipsy, that you're going to feel drunk, then you need to be communicating with somebody to, just like you do. So I was talking about this the other day. We do this all the time, right? You say you go out with your partner and you're like, okay, ordering a drink. You might look at each other and be like, who's driving? Mm-hmm. You know, because, you know, then it's like, okay, you're going to go easy and I can do whatever I want. Right. You know, like, you do that. You know, you can look at your partner and just be like, so, you know, you got, you know, you got the baby? You got that? So you can just communicate with the people around you and make sure that there's a person there who, you know, who can be aware of the baby every moment. If you've just decided that you're going to be out having a good time, you know, they're having a good time or whatever.
Yeah. My favorite go-to story is something that happened here in Rochester. It was several years ago, but I always remembered, and it was like a story on the news where some woman took her baby was in a car seat, the bucket, and she put it up on top of the car like it was a cup of coffee.
Oh my God.
And got in the car and drove away. And the baby was fine, but, you know, the baby was actually buckled in, but into the car seat, but tumbled off the back, you know, my God. And it was determined that she was drunk. And it's like, it's that kind of stuff. It's not that anybody's worried about, like, oh my gosh, your milk is going to taste like Chardonnay. You cannot, you know, like, it's not that. It's decision making.
Your baby, it's the being able to, like, that thing, you know, because you start drinking, you start forgetting things, you start giggling, you start
not make good decisions.
You don't. That's the whole thing of alcohol. You don't make good decisions. You know, you're right. And so have somebody there, and don't put your baby in your bed.
No, don't put your baby in the bed. Don't drive your babysitter home. Don't do any of that stuff.
Right. Don't do the things that you normally wouldn't do if you're drunk. Absolutely. But so should we talk about the numbers here?
Yes, because I usually don't even go by numbers.
I know, but see here. Okay, so here's why I like to talk about numbers is because people think that if you are having a glass of wine. Okay, say a glass of wine is generally like what, 11 to 13% alcohol. People think that when you drink that 13% alcohol glass of wine, that now your blood is 13. Okay, so when you drink alcohol, it's absorbed into your blood and it's absorbed into your breast milk at the exact same rate. And it's metabolized from your breast milk at the same rate as it is in your blood, from your blood.
Right.
And so people think that when you take a drink of 11% alcohol wine, you drink that glass of wine, that now your blood is 11% alcohol, and that's what your baby is drinking, an 11% alcohol glass of wine.
Right.
That is incorrect.
Incorrect.
That doesn't, if you just think about it for a second, it doesn't make sense. Because here, let's go by the law. So if you're pulled over and given a breathalyzer by a police officer and your blood alcohol level is above 0.08, you are driving under the influence.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. I don't know if that number varies from state to state. I don't know. I think that's 0.08 is generally, and that means that person is drunk.
Right.
And will, that your blood alcohol level when it's above 0.08 means that you cannot drive. It's against the law. You're drunk. And that's, I think that's going to depend, this is going to depend on like your body weight and all of that stuff of like how, of your blood alcohol level. Cause obviously if you're smaller,
right,
your blood alcohol level is going to be higher quicker.
Right.
And if you're heavier or taller or bigger or whatever, it's going to be slower.
Yeah.
But you can Google that. I weigh this much, whatever. But you don't have to. Here's the thing. You don't have to do all of that. I'm simply talking about numbers to explain to you that when you are drinking a glass of wine, your blood alcohol level is going to peak about 30 minutes later at approximately 0.02%. Now, keep listening. I said 0.02%. Orange juice has a blood alcohol level of 0.5%.
Get out! Really? I didn't know that.
Higher than non-alcoholic beer.
Why?
I don't know, because of the citrus. I don't know why. I don't know.
That's wild.
That's just how. It's just. But we're talking 0.5. That's not. It's not. Like you would give your child orange juice, right? You wouldn't even think about it.
Right.
But there is actually alcohol in orange juice. Because I don't know why. Because, and like kombucha.
Yeah.
Kombucha has alcohol in it. This is, I give my children kombucha all the time. And I could fall down drunk and they could breastfeed from me and they're getting less alcohol in their system from my breast milk than they would from orange juice or non-alcoholic beer or kombucha. Mm-hmm. Not that I would give them non-alcoholic beer, but that'd be weird. Yeah. But so we have to talk, this is why I like to talk about numbers, because when you start to put it in perspective, it's like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. That, so my baby is actually drinking a 0.02% alcohol beverage. And some people think that that's too high. And that's fine. If you don't want to drink alcohol or you want to make sure that it's completely out of your system before you nurse again, and we're telling you that you don't have to do that, but if that's what you choose to do, then, you can again put your body weight in and, Google all that stuff about how long, the alcohol approximately 2 hours will be completely gone from your body. But like, again, we're talking about numbers that are so small that you really don't have to worry about that when you're breastfeeding your baby. Right.
And the other part of it too is like, are you eating a meal with that where it's going to metabolize a little bit faster? Or are you, what is your body weight? How long has it been since you've had a drink? People think that if they pump and dump the milk, that's getting the alcohol out of the milk. And it has nothing to do with that at all. You're just dumping milk down the drain.
Pumping and dumping. That's the thing. Yeah, that's another thing.
And, what I usually tell families is, if you feel fine, you're fine to breastfeed. So if you are being sensible, you're like having a glass of wine with a meal, maybe right after you breastfed and the baby's going to sleep for 2 or 3 hours. Like, if you were really that concerned about it, then that is a sensible way to go. but it's not. It really is very, very safe.
Yeah, and this is why this is why I go with the numbers, because people can say, oh. And again, I think there's something, also I read a comment on Facebook the other day that I thought was so true. A woman said, I think that people confuse drinking while pregnant with drinking while breastfeeding.
That could be.
And it's true. When you have a baby inside your body sharing your blood, when you drink alcohol, your baby's blood is having the same alcohol content as your blood. Mm-hmm. And so this is a situation that's riskier. But when your baby, and so to go along further, so you're drinking 11% alcohol drink. You drink it, about 30 minutes later, your blood alcohol level is going to be about 2.02%. Your baby drinks that, their blood alcohol level is not going to be a blood alcohol level.
Right.
It's being, it then gets, it's then into their system, and it's basically diluted away because the number is so small. But so I just did a quick Google thing to confirm what I'm saying. Orange juice alcohol content, 0.5%. In reality, I mean, I'm looking at this. This is from Lincoln, Nebraska police website.
So cool.
In reality, there is more alcohol in a glass of orange juice or English muffin.
English muffin?
Than in a glass of non-alcoholic beer or wine. By law, the beverage manufacturers must post a label that the products contain less than 0.5%. Many times the alcohol content can be less than this.
Wow. So if you're not a wine drinker, or, I mean, because we're just, Abby's just talking about wine, but, which, I like wine myself, but we like our craft beers here in Rochester, New York, and we do look at the alcohol content of the craft beers all the time, because obviously the higher the alcohol content, the more alcohol you're getting. And sometimes, like, if my husband's on call, he wants to keep with something that's lower alcohol volume or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you can get a beer that's like 4% alcohol, 5% alcohol. I mean, that's even, now you're cutting in half, even just what a glass of wine alcohol level is.
Right.
So it could be very, like, so small.
And so, again, there's people, because this is also a cultural thing. And so people are going to be worried. And as much as I would like to say that we have completely, gotten rid of everybody's worries and concerns with this one podcast, that should occur. But if it doesn't, and you still want to avoid alcohol, again, you can just simply wait if it makes you feel better. And also, I give a little warning, because they make these alcohol test strips.
Oh my God.
Now, if you drink a glass of orange juice and you test your breast milk, it will be positive. Those things are so sensitive. They are like, it doesn't matter. I mean, you literally have to fast in order to get them to not register alcohol in your body. And so I felt from the same website, I pulled up, oh no, it's a different one. But anyway, I pulled up foods that have alcohol in it. Honey buns. Oh my God. How funny. Hot sauces, sugarless gum, because alcohol is a sweetener. Yeah. Inhalers. I don't know why they list hand sanitizers and bacterial soap in a list of foods, but anyway. Oh. Got a little away from themselves here. Energy drinks, protein bars, ripe fruit, fermented soda drinks. So we're talking about kombucha. And so, there are traces of alcohol in things that you don't even think about. Yeah. And that's basically what, you're giving more alcohol to your child when they're actually eating those things than when they're drinking your breast milk.
It's just one of those things everybody's freaked out about. I've had moms be like, go ahead. I've had moms be like, well, I pumped enough my milk for 24 hours because my mom told me the baby's going to have alcohol poisoning. Yeah, like somebody actually told me that once, and I was like, oh my gosh. First of all, to think that you are poisoning your child is just, for anybody to tell you that you're poisoning your child is terrible.
Right.
Because you're not doing anything of the sort. But really, our point here is to just make sure that you know that, like, your life does not have to stop. You do not have to say, oh, I'm not going to, I can't have a glass of wine with our meal, or I can't, go out and do this thing, or I can't celebrate, this whatever, because I'm breastfeeding. And I don't want anybody to feel like they can't do something.
Right.
Just
there's really, that's, and I think that's the thing as well. Yeah, that's it. It's like people, and this is one of the reasons people want to wean early, and they want to, they choose not to breastfeed to begin with is, breastfeeding seems really hard. Like if you, in our culture, the things that we've come to believe about breastfeeding, it sounds really hard. It sounds too hard. It sounds like you have to give up too much. And then I hear people are always like, well, why can't you just give up drinking for a year? I mean, it's your baby. Well, that's fine, except that there's no reason to.
Right.
You don't have to do that. If you want to do that, certainly that's the healthier choice. Again, we're not saying that this is something you need to have in your diet. It's like not that it's not a healthy choice. It's simply like a cultural thing. That's the social thing that some people do. And if you want to give it up, by all means, give it up. But you don't have to.
You don't have
to.
Breastfeeding.
But you don't have to because of breastfeeding.
And caffeine's kind of the same way. Like it's, people are always like, well, I gave it up for pregnancy. I really want to go back to it. Can I do that? Yeah. And, really sensible for anything, and alcohol's no different than that. Just be smart about it. Be sensible about it.
Yeah. Don't share a bed with your baby. I had, I think that's a big warning. People, that's the big warning that has to go with this is do not share a bed with your baby. There's lots of people think that there's like 10 disclaimers that have to go with alcohol, and it's not. There's only one. Don't share a bed with your baby. Don't share a bed with your baby.
Right.
And don't be drunk alone with your baby. I shortly after I had Jack, my first son, I had some friends over. I was like, okay, I'm going to have my big night. My friends are going to come over. They're going to see my baby. And I finally got my hair done and all there, we're going to have a party. And Josh, my husband, he took over, my friends came over and we, played with the baby and we started drinking and then we drank some more. And at some point he took Jack to bed and he stayed with Jack through the night.
Yeah.
And and the next day I woke up and I breastfed him like I normally do and everything was fine. And I would have, and I could have when I was drunk too. But because of the alcohol content,
right.
I also, you don't want to be like holding your baby if you're going to drop him or,
right.
Or again, falling asleep,
No, it's a safety issue more than anything.
I remember, it is. It's a safety issue. And I went another time. Not that I'm like always going out and drinking, but another time early on with Jack, I went. Oh, maybe it was the time I was getting my hair done. So okay, so I was at the salon, and they're always like giving me wine and stuff there. And I came back, and I was so freaked out. I was just like, I am not going to breastfeed. He saw me, and he starts crying. All he wants to do is nurse, and. My mom is like, oh, God, just nurse him. It's not a big deal. And I was like, no. And I was getting the test strips, and they were like,
oh, my God.
Black as coal. And I was like, oh, my God, he's going to die. And my mom, she's holding him, and she's like, we're passing him around. And she's like, oh, good God, please nurse him.
Oh, my God.
And I was finally like, oh, but what's going to happen? And she's like, nothing. And so I finally just nursed him. He calmed down. That's all he wanted. And he was fine. And, people say like, oh, I had a sangria and my baby fell asleep. No, he didn't. No. Mm-mm. It's not possible. There's no way for you to drink enough for your baby to feel the effects of your alcohol.
No.
It's not possible. They fell asleep because you exhausted them or something.
They're babies.
They're tired.
They're tired.
There's no correlation between that. There's not enough. They cannot possibly, in order for them to get enough alcohol from your breast for them to feel tipsy, you'd be dead.
It would take a lot.
Your body cannot live with that much alcohol in it.
It would take a lot.
I people on this. I actually have. I posted something about alcohol the other day, and a woman said, "I'm a lactation educator, and I'm a whatever, and I have to tell you, when your baby is tipsy, when you're tipsy, your baby is tipsy."
Oh,
and I just was like, "Oh my God, please." With the misinformation, and then we have people with the credentials who are saying this, and I'm like, this is how people just get scared and confused about things.
There's
because there's terrible information going around.
There's no evidence behind that. I also, I've had I've heard lactation consultants tell classes before, you can have a drink an hour, very specific. And I'm like, no, it has everything to do with how you metabolize your body. Like we learned that in like 8th grade science class or something.
Right. There's no way to make it a science so it applies to everybody.
Right. It's like, it's not, how do you feel? Do you feel okay? Do you feel like you can, if you can't drive your car, don't go home and feed your baby and share a bed with your baby. Like it's really comes down to that. But like, seriously, with those test strips, like I can't even with those things. And I've had people that were like, oh, I got him for a shower gift. And I'm like, people think you're an alcoholic. That's what, if you're getting test strips at your shower, like that is, those things are just a money scheme. Like people see you coming pregnant.
Completely useless.
They will suck the money out of you faster than your baby is sucking every vitamin and nutrient out of your body when you're pregnant. Like they will, seriously, it's crazy. And they're just hanging up there by the registers and, this little add-on gift. Oh, yeah, get the test strip so your friend can go out and have a drink after she has her baby. No, do not do that. They're a waste of money and they don't even work and they're ridiculous. Don't do it. If you have them right now, flush them down the toilet because it's stupid.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's
not. It's not. Go by how you feel.
Or play with them. Seriously, have like a couple glasses of orange juice and then test your milk.
My God, that would be so fun.
Just play, because it's not. They're just completely. They're useless.
I'm telling you, we got to invent some kind of useless crap that's gonna.
Because somebody invented something that could detect alcohol in breast milk. Great, okay, except that doesn't give you any useful information.
Right.
We'll just sell it because we figured out how to do it. When all you're doing is causing panic across the nation of moms who just want to have a freaking glass of wine.
It's true. It's true. When I saw those things come out, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. It makes me so mad. Like, it goes right up there with the misinformation. I'm just like, my head will explode. I cannot take it anymore with people that, and it's like, and we buy into it because we want the best for our child. And we have this mommy brain that is not thinking clearly, and you're completely in a fog. And you're like, yeah, I can go out Friday night. Sure. Well, let's get the test strips. And it's like, that is not necessary.
Well, and we're so wired to like worry about our babies. Like it's just another thing to worry about. And if they, and that's the thing, right? People make money off of worry, because if we weren't worried about it, if alcohol wasn't, listen, there is not a single podcast going on in any other country about this topic except for America. They do not sit around in France going like, oh, I wonder if I can have a glass of wine. Like this doesn't occur anywhere else because, first of all, this is like the land of the extremes, right? So, if you drink, then you're falling down drunk in the gutter. Mm-hmm. If you're, it's become... It's excessive. This is like we are excessive people. This, I'm not knocking America, God bless America, all that. But we get a little panicky about things. And, there's a lot of taboos here. We get a little crazy about the bodies. We get crazy about alcohol. We get crazy about sex, it's cultural, and there's people do not sit around in European or whatever other kind of continent we have, wondering like measuring out their alcohol and then putting test strips and then, counting and doing math.
Right.
It's just part of their, and I also will say I used to live in Europe, and I didn't see as many falling down drunk people as I see here in America. We are the, that's the land of the big gulp. We like things big and, wild, and, that's a wonderful thing, except sometimes, then it gets taken a little too far. Mm-hmm. And then we start to associate, having a glass of wine or moderate drinking being a part of your, your lifestyle. It gets associated with you being, drunk, you can't function. I mean, and that's not the reality for most moms.
No, it's not. Like I said, I don't meet too many moms who are like, oh my God, I can't wait to go out and just like drink myself stupid. Right. It's not, it's more about being able to make decisions on your own without being told you cannot do this.
Right, and then you get these I don't want to start saying the names of the organizations because I'll get it wrong, and I don't want to slam one if I don't need to. I'm happy to slam them, but I need to have my facts clear first. But there was like a big organization that put out you might know. They put out the women, breastfeeding women should not have more than this many, drinks or this, it was some warning about alcohol.
Oh, God.
And it's so demeaning. It's so insulting. I do not need some government agency telling me, how to be a mom. This is like, people need to start being offended by this stuff. Mm-hmm. They don't tell men how much alcohol to have, while they're trying to procreate.
That affects stuff too.
Affects stuff, yes. It affects that, yes. But they don't. But it's like men. We're not trying to regulate men's every move, but we love regulating a woman's every move. Mm-hmm. And so we have these warnings about alcohol and where you're supposed to birth and how you're supposed to birth and how you're supposed to sleep and how you're supposed to do all this stuff. It's insulting. You are perfectly capable of making this decision for yourself and for your family. Right. Everyone knows that alcohol is not health food. That if you drink too much, that you're going to be stupid and that you're not going to be making good decisions. These are things that you can decide for yourself. And, then we can give you some information about alcohol content in your breast milk. And that's some science for you to help you make that decision for yourself.
Right. All logic seems to go out the window.
Yeah, and let's not, and then when you see a mom who then decides to have, a glass of wine at dinner and she's at a restaurant, don't give her a dirty look. Don't be like, well, I went 7 years without drinking while I was breastfeeding. And, well, that's great. That's great, but we don't need to do, we're not putting everybody to our own, no. Everybody's not living life.
Right. That would never be me. I'll tell you that much.
Well, it's a tough conversation, but it's one of those ones. There's tougher conversations for me. There's ones that I'm like, oh God, this is really a struggle. But this one for me is easy. Yeah. The science is there. Your breast milk is not going to harm your baby if you're drinking. You could harm your baby if you're drinking. Mm-hmm. So have somebody there who, knows that you're going to be drinking and has agreed to stay sober. And don't sleep with your baby.
Right. It's just common sense. That's really where it comes down to. And live your life.
Right. And don't feel forced to change, make these drastic changes just because you became a mom.
Right.
Don't believe the hype. You don't have to change at all.
Not at all. Not even one bit.
Enough is going to change without your control. Enough is going to change without you having to work at it. Mm-hmm.
And you know yourself better. You know yourself better than anybody else does. You know how you're going to feel. You know what you want. Like, we went to breakfast or brunch with friends of ours, and, one of the moms had just had a baby. It was several of us, but I just had a baby, a month or 6 weeks prior or whatever, and ordered a mimosa. And she took a couple of sips and she passed it on up to me. And she was just like, she goes, my first drink in over 9 months. She's like, that's enough. She couldn't even drink the whole thing. But it's like she ordered it. She wanted it. Like she wanted to be able to do it. Then she was like, I'm not feeling it really. And that's fine, but she knew that she could do that. And it's
right. She knew she was safe to do it. And then she did it and realized that she didn't want it.
Right. And that's fine too. We just kind of laughed. We were just like, all right, I'll, whatever, pass it on up. Somebody will drink it. Yeah. But it's, you know yourself. And she probably came into that brunch going, okay, I'm going to have a mimosa. I'm going to have breakfast with my friends. This is going to be great. And then, was like, nah, it's fine.
Yeah. And maybe she started to go like, woo,
yeah.
I just had a sip. Woo.
Yeah.
And so this is what we mean. You might drink half a glass of wine and be that girl who's flying and be like, oh my God, I'm gonna drop my baby. Someone take my baby. Mm-hmm. You're still safe to breastfeed because again, you've had half a drink.
Right.
So the blood alcohol up, just because you feel super tipsy quicker one day than the next day, doesn't mean that there's suddenly magically, more alcohol in your system.
Right.
It's just hitting you different. Again, we talk about like how much did you have to eat, like how, there's all these things that why it's affecting you different. Mm-hmm. But alcohol you're going to have the same blood alcohol level. And so you're still safe to breastfeed. Have somebody hold the baby up to your boob or something.
Right.
If you feel like you're going to, no, don't do that. Just sit down.
So we've pretty much solved this for you. If you want to have a drink, if you've had your baby, you want to be able to have a drink, go ahead. It's perfectly safe. It's perfectly fine. Abby went over the numbers and all the details if you're a science person. If you are not somebody who wants to have a drink, you're fine to do that too. But if one of your friends says to you, I just had a baby and I would really like to have a drink, don't tell them no, they can't do that because...
Don't tell them that their baby's going to be tipsy.
Right.
If they have a glass of wine, because it's not true.
Tell them to listen to our podcast, and we'll set them straight.
Yeah.
It's really what it's about, our podcast.
Yep.
So, all right.
Pass it on.
Pass it on. And leave us a review while you're passing it on. But
yeah,
we will, next week, talk about going back to work, where you might need that alcohol. So that is going to be...
And just to end it, pumping and dumping, don't do it.
Don't do it, ever. Never.
It will not make the alcohol leave your body any quicker. That won't work. And your breast milk is fine.
Yeah, so don't ever pump
breast milk is safe to drink. Don't dump that breast milk. Don't do it.
Never dump it. And we will talk to you next week when we're returning to work.
Bye.
Bye.